What if the real forces that build nations, and destroy them, are not the ones we see? What if the greatest empires didn't collapse because of armies, leaders, or natural disasters, but because of invisible currents of money moving in the shadows? Every country runs on two economies. The one everyone knows, the official, regulated, taxed, and proudly reported economy. And the one no one talks about, the silent system beneath it. A network of unofficial markets, secret flows of wealth, and unrecorded transactions that keep the machine moving, until the machine burns. This second economy is older than kings, older than currencies, older than borders. And it has shaped the fate of civilizations more than any army or ideology ever has. Today, we're going to follow its hidden trail across centuries, continents, and collapses to understand how nations quietly rise, and why they suddenly, shockingly fall. Because history doesn't repeat itself. Hidden economies do. Let's begin. Most people assume a nation succeeds because of policy, leadership, or innovation. But history shows something else. When economies grow faster than governments can control them, a gap appears, a gap between what is officially recorded and what is actually happening. Inside that gap, a shadow economy forms. Sometimes it keeps a nation alive. Other times, it becomes the ticking bomb that ends it. To see how this works, we have to travel back thousands of years, to the markets of ancient Mesopotamia, the world's first recorded civilization. Clay tablets reveal merchants tracking debts, barley exchanges, and long-distance trade. But the tablets also show something strange: huge discrepancies between official prices and real trading values. In other words, even the first governments couldn't track every transaction. People created side deals, under-the-table trades, favor networks, and informal credit systems that worked faster and more efficiently than the state. This is the seed of every hidden economy, when ordinary people create alternative systems because the official one is too slow, too unfair, too expensive, or too corrupt to trust. As civilizations expanded, so did their underground systems. In ancient China, during the Han Dynasty, taxes were so heavy on salt and iron that underground workshops appeared everywhere. The emperor outlawed private production, but illegal foundries grew more powerful than the government. They supplied entire regions, employed thousands, and created secret wealth trails the state couldn't see. Whenever the dynasty tried to crack down, rebellions followed. Why? Because the hidden economy was feeding half the population. And this pattern repeats again and again. In Rome, the empire's wealth wasn't just built through conquest, it was built through a thriving informal economy that sat beneath its official structure. Roman merchants often avoided taxes by reporting lower weights on shipments. Senators invested in illegal mining operations that paid laborers off the record. Even the famous Roman grain supply, the lifeline of the capital, was shaped by bribery, insider deals, and black market brokers. Everything looked prosperous on the surface. Underneath, everything was quietly cracking. When emperors raised taxes to fund wars, the hidden economy grew even faster. People hoarded gold. Landowners paid workers secretly in grain to avoid tribute. Currency melted out of the empire as private traders used foreign coins instead of Rome's devalued money. Eventually, the official economy could no longer support the empire, but the hidden economy could no longer hide it. Rome didn't just fall because of invaders. It fell because its real economy had already collapsed long before the walls were breached. Let's move forward. Medieval Europe faced the same pattern. After the Black Death, labor became valuable, and workers demanded higher wages. Kings tried to freeze wages by law. But people simply worked in the shadows, paid in food, land, or silver coins quietly passed hand to hand. The hidden economy was the only economy that functioned. In the Ottoman Empire, when corruption consumed the bureaucracy, the shadow markets took over the supply of military resources. Soldiers often bought their own equipment from illegal dealers. The empire looked strong, but its official systems were hollowed out. And the same thing happened during the rise of the British Empire. Merchant smugglers became wealthier than government officials. The empire eventually legalized many of the illegal trades, not because they approved of them, but because they couldn't afford to fight them anymore. The hidden economy became the real one, absorbed not through morality, but necessity. This is the first pattern every nation follows. When official rules become too rigid, too greedy, or too broken, hidden economies rise to fill the space. But there is a second pattern, the one that destroys nations. The moment a hidden economy becomes larger than the official one, collapse begins. To understand why, we need to examine a more recent case, the Soviet Union. On paper, the USSR had one of the largest economies in the world. But behind closed doors, something else was happening. The government set unrealistic prices, production targets, and distribution systems. Factories lied to meet quotas. Workers stole materials to trade privately. Farmers hid crops to sell directly to consumers instead of delivering them to the state at fixed prices. By the 1980s, economists estimate the Soviet underground economy was nearly the same size as the official one. The state could no longer trust its own numbers. The real economy and the reported economy had become two different worlds. When a government loses sight of its true economic conditions, stability becomes an illusion. Goods disappear. Black markets surge. People stop believing official promises. That is the moment collapse becomes inevitable. The Soviet Union didn't fall in 1991 because of one dramatic event. It fell because the hidden economy had been quietly eroding the real government structure for decades, until there was almost nothing left to stand on. But the story doesn't end in the past. Hidden economies dominate the modern world in ways most people never imagine. In developing countries today, the shadow economy can range from 30% to 70% of all economic activity. Entire nations run on unrecorded cash transactions, from street vendors to small workshops to private labor networks. But even the wealthiest nations are not immune. In the United States, the IRS estimates hundreds of billions of dollars go unreported every year. Under-the-table labor, digital side hustles, informal rental markets, and private barter systems quietly shape how people survive high inflation and rising costs. In Europe, millions of workers participate in undeclared labor networks, especially in construction, domestic work, and agriculture. These unofficial markets expand every time official regulations become too heavy. And in rapidly growing economies like India, nearly 80% of workers participate in informal employment, the backbone of national productivity, yet mostly invisible to government statistics. Hidden economies don't appear because people want to break the law. They appear when people are pushed into them. When the official system becomes too hard to navigate, people build their own system. Which brings us to the next twist: globalization didn't shrink the hidden economy. It supercharged it. The rise of offshore banking, tax havens, private shell companies, and encrypted digital transactions has created the largest hidden economy in human history, not run by the poor, but by the wealthy. Economists estimate that between 8 to 10% of the world's wealth is hidden in offshore accounts. In some regions, the number rises to 40 or even 60%. This has powerful consequences. When money flows into hiding, governments lose tax revenue. When governments lose revenue, they cut services or raise taxes. When taxes rise, more people move money underground. The pattern repeats endlessly, weakening the official economy even in countries that appear stable. Even more striking is the rise of informal global supply chains. Modern products from clothing to electronics are often built through networks of subcontractors and off-the-record workshops that no government fully understands or controls. A phone assembled in one factory may contain components from 10 unofficial suppliers operating in legal gray zones. Nations depend on these hidden networks even if they deny their existence. This is the uncomfortable truth. Modern prosperity often rests on economic activity that isn't fully visible, recorded, or regulated. But hidden economies also carry a dark warning. When too much wealth becomes invisible, nations lose their ability to respond to crises. We saw this in the 2008 financial collapse. The global shadow banking system, a network of unregulated financial institutions operating outside traditional rules, ballooned in size. Governments believed their economies were safer than they actually were. When the system cracked, the hidden damage exploded into public view. We saw a smaller version of this during the pandemic, when millions of people working outside the official economy suddenly became economically invisible and received no support. Governments realized they had no accurate record of how many people relied on informal income to survive. And we see echoes of it today in countries facing hyperinflation, where people abandon official currencies entirely, using barter, foreign cash, or digital coins as their real economy, while the government economy decays in plain sight. When the official economy becomes a shell, the hidden economy becomes the country's true heartbeat. But a heartbeat alone cannot support a collapsing body. So the question is, are hidden economies the backbone of survival, or the hidden reason nations fall? The truth is both. Hidden economies rise first as a lifeline, a solution to inefficiency. But they grow into a threat when they become larger than the systems meant to manage them. The rise of nations often depends on people's creativity, adaptation, and informal exchange. The fall of nations begins when leaders ignore those hidden systems or lose control of them. This brings us to today. Even now, as you watch this video, world powers are shaped by unseen economic flows. Digital black markets, cryptocurrency ecosystems, private offshore networks, unregistered labor communities all silently influence interest rates, trade balances, debt levels, and political stability. The next global collapse may not start with a war or a recession. It may begin the same way ancient collapses did, with governments losing sight of the real economy operating beneath them. History shows that nations decay not when people stop working, but when people stop working within the official system. Now, let's move toward the lessons hidden inside this story, lessons every viewer can carry into the future. The first lesson is simple. When systems become too rigid, people build alternatives. This has always been true. It is true today. Whenever governments or institutions fail to adapt, people create parallel systems, whether through informal trade, digital currencies, or underground markets. Understanding these alternatives isn't just economic knowledge, it's a window into how people survive stress, instability, and scarcity. The second lesson. A nation cannot survive if it cannot see itself clearly. Rome fell partly because it no longer understood its real economy. The Soviet Union collapsed for the same reason. Any government that relies on distorted data, inaccurate reporting, or illusions of stability becomes vulnerable. This matters today more than ever, because modern systems are so complex that no one fully understands them, not even the institutions managing them. The third lesson. Hidden economies reveal the truth people don't want to say out loud. When people turn to informal systems, it is a sign of something deeper: distrust. Distrust in government. Distrust in fairness. Distrust in the future. This distrust is often more dangerous than inflation, debt, or unemployment. Because once trust breaks, collapse becomes a matter of time, not speculation. The story of hidden economies is not just about money. It is about people, their fears, their creativity, their resilience, and their quiet acts of survival that shape the fate of entire civilizations. And now the final thought. Every nation today, big or small, wealthy or struggling, democratic or authoritarian, carries a shadow economy beneath its surface. The question that will shape the next century is not whether hidden economies exist, but whether governments can learn to understand and work with them before they grow too powerful to control. If you found this exploration meaningful, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next deep dive. And share your thoughts in the comments. Do hidden economies make nations stronger, or weaker? Your perspective adds to the conversation, and the discussion might reveal more than the script ever could. Thank you for watching and for questioning the world beneath the world.